Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Awakening Beauty Contemplation. As always, before we start, I would like to invite you to grab one of your favorite drinks, tea or coffee or a glass of water, and find a comfortable seat. This will be an interesting topic. In this one, I will unpack the secrets of my life without a cell phone coverage. Almost a little over 2 years, and what I have gained from this experience. First of all, this was not a philosophical decision. It was not even conscious at the time. Conscious in a different way. So 2 years ago, when I quit the corporate world, I started splitting my time between different countries. So I needed a little bit more flexibility and freedom in my communication plans. But I also needed some sort of cell phone functionality to be able to access bank accounts or other things. So when I did some research at the time, I realized that most of the large organizations are using best pricing strategies to exploit this mandatory need. So, for example, in most of the major United States corporations, the whole package with data and everything might have been, let's say, $60, but the only phone functionality was like $50. So it didn't really make any sense. So at the time, there were a couple of startups that enabled me to have access to messaging and get some sort of communication through Wi-Fi services. So I started using this as a way to explore these startups. And I didn't really have cell phone coverage most of the time. Like I said, I was splitting my time in Turkey, and in Turkey, I didn't have a cell phone too. At times, I was leveraging connection through my loved ones, but to be honest, I realized that I really didn't need much. A couple things has happened in the meantime. I just realized how much of my time was really controlled through technology. And I'm saying this as someone who has been working in the field of technology, producing technology products, supporting technology products, and still a believer of technology strongly. Having said that, I am also very concerned about the way that we use technology or the way that we are used by technology if we are not really conscious about the right use cases. And nowadays, the social media and all other different things that we carry in the form of applications are taking too much control of our lives, taking too much of our attention. So when I started living without the cell phone functionality, I started realizing a couple benefits. The first of them, and the most important one for me, was really owning the freedom in my life. Instead of receiving calls, receiving messages all the time, and getting notifications and feeling the burden of responding to them in the timelines of the person that is sending to me, I was able to own the creative flow of my life or be in the flow of the natural existence of my life. Of course, I understand this might not be applicable for everyone. If you are working for a big corporation, if you have to be active and responsive, this might not be the right strategy for you. But if you have enough flexibility and freedom in your life, like I did at the time, and I do still, I do have my own creative business. If you have the capacity to own your time, living without a phone functionality is such an enabler of the freedom. It gives you so much head space. It gives you so much heart space as well. And especially if you are a creative, this is so essential. When I'm in the creative flow, the most important thing I need is concentration. I just need to be with what is emerging from me at that time. And when my phone rings, when I get a message or a notification, it disturbs my flow immediately. And another thing I have realized in this process is really how present I am. Before, I was also walking with my phone, texting all the time, or at times checking things frequently. But nowadays, when I'm out walking, just listening to something in the background, I am more present in real life. I can realize little, small, more subtle details. And this might look like something small, but over time, if we look into the time that we spend with the screens, it's actually a big commitment. And it takes so much of our attention from real life. And it really separates us from the real immersive experiences in life. And the next thing is maybe because of these limitations, I was invited to be a lot more creative in the way that I engage with technology. So before, I was fed by algorithms a lot more. But during this process, I realized that I don't need too many applications. Like, to give specific examples, for consumption, for learning, my go-to application is YouTube. And I subscribe to YouTube Premium. Or I was already a subscriber of the YouTube Premium, but started leveraging its benefits more. For the ones who are not familiar, you can download videos and listen to them offline. So in this process, it might look like a little small detail, but it gives me more freedom and flexibility in terms of what I consume, in terms of the timing, in terms of the order of things too. So instead of being fed by the algorithms and sometimes endlessly spending my time in them when I'm online, when I download and listen things offline, I could be a lot more conscious in terms of what I consume, how I consume, in the order that I consume things. And another thing I realize is the fact that it helped me to exercise some of the muscles that I stopped using. Coming back to the initial days of, for example, Google Maps, like before them, at least in my lifetime, we had a time before Google Maps. I was able to exercise my imagination, spatial memory more. But when Google Maps came in, or the map or navigation solutions came in, we lost that essential part of our thinking. I think a similar kind of thing is happening with having connection to Google all the time. Nowadays, people are not even stopping and thinking and coming up with their own solutions to their problems. I feel like we are not asking critical questions and we are not exercising our creative thinking skills as much as we used to exercise them before. Nowadays, whenever we have a question, it's easy for us to open Google, or right now, not even Google, different AI applications, and just ask them, like, what's the answer to this? But if you do not have connection all the time, whenever something pops up, it also forces you to think about it critically. At times, sit with it and let the answers emerge in you. And I think this is an essential skill. This is a very human skill that I'm afraid that if we lose it, we might be mindless targets for algorithms, always feeding things to us. So it's really important for us to be a lot more conscious about why we use technology and how we use technology as well. So for the ones who are thinking how they can integrate this into their lives, there are some intermediate paths too, but if you exercise it in the way that I do, you can find Wi-Fi area or so in different cafes, in different public spaces, and you can get access through that. But again, it's an intermediary step. Instead of you being all the time accessible, you can get access every few hours or through intermediate access points, which still gives you some breathing space in this endless, crazy notifications world that we live in. And in the end, if you choose to pursue this path, you can also save some money, like I said in the beginning. You don't have to live an international lifestyle that I do, but there are quite a lot of emerging startups that are providing phone services. If you don't need to be active all the time, it's literally 1/10 of the price. And to me, it's not only a pricing issue at this stage, it's more of a presencing issue. I can be more present without technology. I could be more of life and I could create with more of life. And by the way, on that creation note, maybe it's really important to highlight the fact that I am still using an iPhone, actually, a recent one. So I'm not going back to the Stone Age. I am only not interrupting my flow with regular calls, messages, or notifications, but I'm using this device as an active creation tool. For me, this is an enabler of my creativity. I'm taking photos, I am taking videos, I am recording most of my contemplations out in nature. Sometimes when I'm inspired by something, I'm taking notes through this. So the same tool that could be hindering our lives could be an enabler of our creativity if we use it in the right way. And especially for the creatives, I would like to invite them to think about turning iPhone into a creation device instead of a consumption device. So on the practical side, you might be wondering what you might need if you would like to give this lifestyle a try. Maybe a couple of things. Like I said, you might need to do some experimentation in terms of which tools and applications you might need. And depending on your needs, you might need to create your own workflow. In my case, I realized that I'm using only a couple applications like for navigation, Google Maps, and I can download some maps offline for the places that I visit frequently, and I can use the same maps over and over. In terms of communication, whether it hinders my connection with others, I can admit that it requires some coordination. So the people might not be able to reach me immediately all the time. But like I said, as a creative, that is not something that I would like to welcome in my life as well. Not that I am 100% structured. I do plan things and I do allow things to come up, but I usually communicate people about my style. I let people know that I am not living with a phone. I don't have a phone functionality. And if they have to reach me, they can do so through WhatsApp, through other channels. But I also let them know that I might not be able to answer immediately. And I kindly ask them to give me at least a day for me to come back to them. And like I said, this is your life and your standards, and you can adjust your guidelines based on your own needs. But I think instead of being all the time available, especially if you are a creative, it is better to find your own rhythm and establish a lifestyle that allows you to have some breathing space in this crazy world of ours. And once again, in this crazy technological modern world of ours in which we are used by technology, I think consciously we need to make investments to find ways of balancing our consumption in technology. And even if you do not want to try this, there might be some simple tips and tricks. One of them is controlling notifications. You can just turn off the notifications and at least keep the visual ones that will give you a signal when you look at them instead of being distracted with the voice all the time. At least that has been a trick that I used when I was still active in the corporate world. The second thing is when you click on the site multiple times, it changes the color of the screen from eye-catching, colorful icons to black. And black and white changes our consumption patterns too. So there are actually quite a lot of studies that shows that when you change the color on the screen to black and white, they are not as attractive as they were before. So that also from an unconscious level lowers our consumption rates. And if you adopt this lifestyle, you can also inspire others to think about theirs. At least that has been happening in my journey. At first, most people find my patterns weird, but over time, I think I've inspired a couple more people, and at least they started thinking and talking about how they can use notifications or different modes of focus, like the focus functionality of iPhone, to give them more space in their lives. Anyway, I think this is all I wanted to share for this contemplation. And I hope it inspires you to think about your telephone usage, phone usage, your needs a little bit more creatively, innovatively. And I hope this inspires you to use technology consciously in a way that aligns with your needs, but also in a way that honors your humanity. As always, thank you all for being here. Till the next time, remember your beauty, awaken more of it internally, and create more of it out in the world. See you next time.